So without a doubt, one of the things I've changed my mind on many things, but one of the big things I've changed my mind on is this belief around more individualized sports not being a team sport. That's totally false. Like whether it's tennis, swimming, track and field, or a sport like skiing, I've really come to actually understand and appreciate the power of team culture in those environments. In the second part of our conversation with Martin Wilson, Martin's going to share some of the ways that he builds and nurtures culture within his ski teams. Now, he is coaching in a high performance environment. I know many of the listeners are not. And he's also in a sport that most of us aren't familiar with, but I still know there are so many good takeaways around team culture. He's also going to really challenge us as coaches, as leaders, to talk less and be more intentional in our communication. And I think that is a really, really good challenge for all of us. And another big thing he does is he gives us some really great action items around self-reflection, like that being so key, important to his growth and his evolution and his transformation as a coach. So I know you're going to appreciate and love all these bits from Martin. Again, today, I could listen to him all day long. I'm just so grateful to have met him and grateful to share his insights on coaching with you all today. Welcome to the Coaching Culture Podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you unlock your leadership potential and create winning team environments. My name is JP Nurbin, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Betsy Butterick. Nate Sanderson sat this interview out. Each week, we bring you practical tips and strategies to elevate your coaching. For more, explore our online courses and books at tocculture.com and betsybutterick.com, as well as subscribe to our weekly newsletter at tocculture.com to get those weekly culture building insights.
You talk about those memes, and there's a one that I saw that says, if you've told them 1,000 times, the issue isn't with them.
Preach.
And I think
Amen.
like that
Yes.
one thing, right? Like, I also
Yes.
saw something recently. It was a principal, and it was a video of him walking down a hallway with a little girl. So you're assuming elementary school. And then the principal starts skipping and the girl starts skipping. And he said, the thing that I realized during my time as a principal is we don't choose the moments they remember. And I think as a coach, when you're talking about like, what's the next thing they need? What's the next thing I can offer them? But keeping in mind, like, I don't choose what moments they remember. You know, are they going to remember years from now that thing I said at the finish line when I was frustrated because, you know, we had this plan to squeeze and get all the juice and then it didn't go the way we thought? Or are they going to remember that one like supportive thing that you said in a well-timed 30 seconds, you know, on a chairlift? Like just the intention around, and I know we talked before about how do you be athlete-centric? There's so many things that feel like need to be done to hit that mark. Just the intention of that next thing that's valuable to them in that context. Having that answer of it depends, because it does. Depends on the athlete, depends on the context, it depends on the timing, it depends on so many things. And that can feel overwhelming, or it can give us an opportunity to get that well-placed ping pong ball into the cup. So I think your approach is spot on, Martin.
It's such a better feeling as a coach. And I can only imagine what it feels like as an athlete when, I don't know, I've got my own kids that I parent, right? And I know the second they shut off from me, like if I've given them too much, whether it's too much negativity or too much positivity or too much anything, it's really clear when you see that they're full and not accepting any new information. So when somebody respects that, we, we talk a lot about, you know, an athlete that won't do much for a coach until the athlete knows the coach cares. That shows caring, that you have some empathy for them, you have some understanding for them. And I don't know, I think parents yell a lot at their kids, not because they're bad people, but because they've got something to say. And as a coach, I have to be way more restrained and methodical. And with my advice, I need to be like trained like an assassin, like pick my spots, one bullet. That's how it goes. It's just a different game. The less I say, the more impactful it is to the athletes. It is. That's not my nature. I love to talk. So like clearly, I love to talk. It's not natural, but it's what's needed. Like I find myself standing on the side of the hill, biting my tongue off, and wait, wait, wait for the spot to have the conversation.
I think that is what you just said there. It's not natural. It's intentional, right? Like it's not natural, but so often coaches operate from a place of what it feels natural, what is their style. Everyone has a style that apparently every athlete needs to accommodate their style. I think oftentimes, is their belief, but I'm curious, what has helped you to move from a coach who coaches just from what's natural and what just feels right for you in that moment, and help you to be more intentional as a coach? I guess on making that shift from being the unintentional reactionary coach to the intentional one that can bite his tongue, that chooses to bite his tongue, that chooses to say, what does this athlete need in this moment? How do you
Well,
make that shift?
a couple. One, I was tired of sucking. Like, I don't know, like I was tired of being frustrated. Um, and maybe this is a good time to talk about the podcast, the next turn that I've had for 4 seasons, because that's probably where I've learned the most. That's where I become the most understanding of athletes and what they actually need. Um, we've had over 100 World Cup athletes. We have had great coaches. We've had great parents, World Cup parents, to give some perspective of what it means to be in that sport for that long. But listening to the athletes, just listening to athletes, that's what it is. It's 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 not about me. It's about who. Learning who it's about. Learning about them, using my skill set to help them, not them helping my skill set. So listening to all these athletes, and every single athlete we've had on the podcast talks about um, autonomy, ownership, taking ownership in their programs. And it's just clear when you get to the high level, like you coach, you coach, you coach, and then it's support. Like they have to be ahead of you at high level. The athletes have to be pushing harder than you. They have to be working harder than you, um, or it doesn't work, in my opinion. Like it just doesn't work. I can't coach better than an athlete can athlete. Um, so understanding that autonomy is natural, and until they've decided to do it themselves, a lot of it really doesn't matter. And this is where I can get into trouble, especially when I talk to younger programs. And I think we talked about it in Ontario, JP, is like it's really important what you do at U12 and U14, but at the same time, none of it matters. Like, none of it matters. Like the grassroots, the philosophies, the principles, they matter, but the outcomes don't matter until much later on. And again, talking to these athletes that are succeeding at a high level, they own it. It's their own program. They are grateful for the opportunity. They are present in the moment, and they are empathetic for themselves, and they love learning. Those are the five things kind of that stick out to me. Self empathy, realizing what they're doing is really hard and not many people are good at it, um, allows a lot more freedom in learning. That's a big one. But the ownership and the presence, being present in the moment, willing to succeed and fail. What's that quote at Wimbledon? Um, Facing victory and defeat with the same face, essentially. That to me is gratitude. That to me is presence. And when they're there, and when you tune into that, they're incredible. That's what I've learned. So starting to listen to athletes. Before I started the podcast, I went back and did exit interviews with 6 of my former athletes. So those were some interesting conversations to go back and like really want to learn from them, what I did well, not well, where I could improve, what they felt they got, what they felt they missed. Hearing that, being or wanting to do better than that, um, is what allows me to stay very athlete centric. But talking to these athletes, I challenge coaches: talk to your athletes, talk to former athletes, not as coach to athlete, but just person to person, and find out what the impact you had was, better or worse. And we have a tagline at our podcast. It's the pursuit of better, to be better athletes, better coaches, better parents, and better fans. That's how we start each show. Um, but that pursuit of noble is better. And to go back, what we were talking about before is what kind of athletes I'm looking for. The ones that are interested in getting better. The pursuit of better is noble, and it is uh, an art form that is being lost in generations to come. Um, Pursuing better is hard. So anybody that's willing to pursue better, I've got your back. I'm in on it. I'm in on it with you.
I, I I would also, maybe you could change the tagline to just the pursuit of not sucking, like, because that was your motivation. Like, but I
I
actually genuinely
workshopped
think
that. I workshopped that. It didn't come out. It wouldn't come
Rephrased in
out.
the positive, JP.
Yeah.
Not
Don't get me
sucking
wrong.
is
It's in the
suck
back burner. I
less.
mumble it under my breath every time I say the pursuit of
yeah,
better.
yeah.
Suck less.
Suck less, suck less. But like, but I think there is something in this which I want to point out and I want to highlight in your journey, which is you weren't obviously getting the outcomes or having the effect that you wanted as a coach and as a leader. And you went to your players and you start to have question conversations and you start to ask questions. And it was very much what I'm hearing is self-reflective of like, what can I do to be better? Not, okay, what happened
Mhm.
here so I can fix the next athlete that comes along and fix their problem or like there's just it's more of an internal reflection, right? And it's a frustration of like I'm not getting the effect that I'm not having the effect that I want. I'm not having the outcomes I want. What do I need to change in me rather than what do I need to change in other people there? And it's just it sounds maybe not very for some people not like a big deal or a big difference, but there's a huge difference in just that internal reflection versus external reflection. And I think that sometimes that pain of sucking or what we think is not getting the outcomes we want drives us to there, but then it starts to send you on this journey where you're just so interested and curious, and all of a sudden you have this podcast, and I can relate to that. Obviously, doing this 8 years, my driving thing is just the conversations with people like yourself. You're just learning, and you are on that journey, and it's a lot of fun then.
I don't think we do a great job in sports. Definitely not in my sport of promoting coach development. We have our development systems, but it's not that. If you stand on the side of a hill at a ski race, you'll hear a bunch of coaches complaining about why don't athletes listen to me? If they only listened to me and did what I told them to do, they'd be better. Right. And I've been doing this for 30 years now. So I've seen the difference. Like I was around for quote unquote back in my day, and I've seen kids now, right? The kids back in the day, we like, okay, so they're not as resilient. Parents are a little different. Expectations are a little skewed. All of the things are true. But now what? Like, but now what? What's next? What's the next move? What's the next turn? Now I workshop that too. But it's what's next. Realizing the things that you can fix and not fix. Like w- social media is real. Phones are real in athletes. I could try to fix that or I could work with it. Right. And I'm probably better lined up to work with it than to fix it. Right. So picking your battles, picking um where you're putting your energy and deciding what you're solving for. I think that's a big one for coaches is what are you solving for? That's how I look at what goes on my daily agendas. What's the next thing I can have a impact on? Where can I have influence? What can I do as opposed to here's the list of why everybody sucks, and if they just did what I asked, we'd be golden. Like that's not real. It's one of my favorite quotes is life is 10% what happens and 90% how you react to it. By Charles Swindoll. And I think as coaches and in sports, we spend so much time work like putting all our energy into the 10% of what happened that we miss where the real gains are and that 90% how we react to it. So I give less concern to what's happened or where we're at, just where we go. Where's the next best energy to invest?
You mentioned that question, "What are you solving for?" And as you were talking, Martin, I'm thinking about how so many coaches I know if they were really honest with themselves, the answer would be, "I'm solving my own frustration." Like, that's what this is
That's
about
fair.
really right now. Yeah. So I really appreciate you inviting people to reflect on that.
It's hard. It's hard, but it's worth it. I've had ebbs and flows with coaching over the year. I've quit a couple times. I've walked away going, "This is nuts," and this is not what I thought it was going to be. The things I'm doing in my job, I'm not good at. Right? I'm the X's and O's, the planning. I'm not doing much of that. I'm doing all the other stuff. But in some ways, I took it back. Like, you know what? I am going to do it again, but I'm going to do it in a way that's healthy, in a way that's healthy for me, that's healthier for the athletes, that isn't loud and boisterous. It's nose down, quiet, it's humble, it's progressive. We can do that. Like, so my relationship is on my terms now with this sport. And I hope athletes have their own relationship on their terms with it, not on my terms. They don't have to love what I love. They don't have to like what I like, but we have to find a way to utilize me to help them get what they want. That's the whole game. I am my kids laugh when I say this. I'm just a tool. And they go, "Yeah, you are, dad." But I am only as useful as the guy grabbing the hammer.
Mhm. I've got a few other things I want to ask you about. And one of those is around team culture, right? And I know many people think, oh, skiing, I can't imagine there's much of a team culture there, but I also recognize and with my conversations with yourself and other ski coaches in Ontario when I was speaking up there, recognize there is a great team aspect to it, and the we're in this together. That aspect can really to enhance the experience and the performance of athletes and their learning. So when you think about team culture, within the athletes that you work with, how do you build that? How do you create that? What's that look like for you?
Um, it's intentional. We work on it. Like when I took this job, the first thing I did was cut off 5 days of a ski camp that we were supposed to do down in South America. And we did a boot camp in Ontario with a team sports psychologist, a meditation person, and like it's intentional. And we sat down with the team for 3 days and going, "Hey, we're all getting along now, but come February, when one of you is doing really well and two of you are struggling and one of you is injured, what's it going to be like then? What are the rules of engagement? What are the key principles of this family that we're creating?" And yeah, it's individual. Everybody races on their own, but we spend way more time together than just about any team that you can mention from Van. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of time together, and it's not always easy. Um, but preparing for it, talking about it. We check in with our team. Most of the guys have their own mental performance coaches, anyways. But we have a team one that we check in with once a month. Like, how are we doing? How's it going? Remember these? This is what we said. Like we said, if we were going to have a good year, these were the key behaviors that we're probably going to bring it. How are we doing with those? When we go down a rabbit hole of negativity, these are the behaviors that are probably going to show. How are we doing with those? And so it's never a stressful conversation. It's just like check back. Like it's just a check in. It's not like your team can explode in a matter of minutes, right? As far as team culture goes. And you can it's tough to repair, but if you have the framework of you have the emergency action plan, it's it's a little easier to drive faster when you know that you're going to get out of the car wreck.
I love that bit, and it comes down to laying. What I heard there is laying a foundation
Yeah.
for, once again, how are we going to work through conflict when it comes up? How are we going to work through those things? What are laying the foundation for that culture? But then you said you're checking in. You're constantly checking in. You're checking in on a consistent basis. Um, speaking of the emergency action plan, it's almost like every time I get on an airplane, we got to review that thing. Now, I don't really pay attention, but so especially when I'm in the emergency row, I don't think people would want to fly on that plane with me. because I don't think I've paid attention in years because I'm usually asleep by the time it starts. But either way, I mean, I think the idea is just that there is these consistent review processes. You're consistently checking in. I can imagine sometimes that feels like something you'd want to give a pass, or we got a lot of other stuff going on there, but
Yeah.
you recognize the value of consistency in sustaining a good culture.
Well, we talked about it earlier, I think, but when I think about how to say this, I guess, like it's we decide what's important from the beginning, and that's probably I've as a coach, I've got two big areas of influence. One is right at the beginning, I think. Like I can help when we sit down as a team, I can really steer the conversation into what principles, philosophies of engagement are going to be important because I've got 30 years of experience. I've dealt with literally 1,000 different athletes of succeeding and learning and failing and struggling. I, I can predict what's going to come up in February and January, what kind of conversations we're going to have with parents and athletes and what kind of situations. So, talking about those fundamentals of communication and team early and often, it's 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 where I can have the most influence. The other part is when things are going great or kind of not so great at the end of the day, that's where I have my other real big piece of influence. But it's October, November, lining everything up, sticking to the culture pieces, and where I spend my time along the way is like we've talked about, it's all intentional. That to me, if I have a team that is healthy, I feel really comfortable that I can produce results with them. If I have a team that knows how to deal with conflict, good and bad, I feel comfortable. We're going to produce results. We can produce results. If I know that these guys can work through emotional, mental challenges efficiently and cleanly, I feel like we can produce results. This is, I don't care what sport it is, it's human performance. This isn't about free throws. It's not about edge angles and boots. It's not about any of that. It's human performance. One of my mentors said about skiing, it's relatively simple. It's just really hard to do, right? And I think that's something most coaches really need to get to. It's the X's and O's are fairly simple. It's just really hard to do. It's human performance. I'm a good coach. I can teach you how to pole plant. I can teach you how to bend your boot. Betsy, you can teach me how to do a free throw follow through problem. You can teach me those things if we're connected, if I'm willing to learn and you're willing to give. That's the more, like that's the better instead of the more. Better moments, better connections, better, just better experiences together. It's simple yet quite difficult.
I'll kind of get you out here on this, which is, you've talked a lot about being athlete centered, and you've talked really about how you've grown and adapted to your athletes. And yet, when you think about your non negotiables, like what's most important to you in coaching that you wouldn't sacrifice to accommodate a certain potential athlete or accommodate a certain boss, right? What is most important, to you? What are those core values, principles, non-negotiables for yourself that you will hold on to?
Be a decent human. I don't want to work for somebody that isn't decent. Like and you can define decent as you want, right? But as a coach, I want to work for somebody that allows me to try, to fail, that gives me support, that gives me guidance, that helps me get up after failure, that holds me true to my principles. And I want to coach the same way. Like I got to think that every athlete wants that. A coach that will push them, will dust them off, that allows for failure, that allows for independence, allows for risk, but feels supported along the way. Like it's the same. again, human performance. The same, like a CEO wants to be supported that way too. Like if I was running a big company, I'd want the same thing. I want people around me that I know care about me, that will give it to me real, that have empathy for what I'm doing, understand what I'm doing is hard. That's what I want. That's what athletes deserve. And every athlete I've talked to on the podcast talks like that. Like it's not that they want everything their way. I don't have to roll out the red carpet for an athlete, but I do have to meet them where they're at. We use that term a lot, and we do it like we give it a lot of lip surface, but meet them where they're at. Like actually meet them where they are at.
Martin, thank you for coming
Thank
on,
you.
sharing your heart, and like you have a clear philosophy and a way about you as a leader that I know is true, like true for you and
Thanks.
true for your athletes and how you show up. And yeah, I just knew this would be a great conversation. And I know there's probably a small percentage of our listeners are ski coaches, but there's every one of these leaders and coaches that can learn from you, right? And so it's been a really impactful conversation. For those
Thank you.
that want to hear more of your voice, right? And they're tired of maybe hearing my voice. Where can they check you out, listen to you, and maybe reach out if they're interested to learn more?
Find us at the nextturnpodcast.com. Right there. Everything's there. I
Well,
really appreciate this conversation. I really appreciate what you guys have done with your platform too. Coaches need coaches, right? And we do a really poor job of one embracing a coach that is willing to pursue better, and sharing knowledge. So thank you for what you do. That's really cool. I'm a big fan.
all right, that's a wrap for this episode and for this interview with Martin Wilson. If you enjoyed it, please share it with other leaders and be sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss out on any future episodes. In the meantime, if you want to go deeper, if you actually want to train yourself on how to create an extraordinary culture, I would encourage you to check out and consider the TOC Transformational Coaching Culture Certification. For more information on that program and all our online courses, go to tocculture.com. And while you're there, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter so you get the notes to every episode and some other free articles and resources. Thanks for listening in.